The council chamber stretched wide and tall, filled with representatives from 63 different species. Today, the chamber felt smaller than usual. Fear had a way of making even the largest spaces feel cramped. Ambassador Min Jun sat in the human delegation section, his hands folded calmly on the smooth table before him. He watched as the counselor from the Vaxian Empire stood to speak. The Vaxian's skin changed colors rapidly, shifting from blue to deep purple. Min Jun had learned long ago that this meant extreme distress. 12 species, the Vaxian said, his voice trembling. 12 entire species have been destroyed by the Krythax swarm in just 2 years. Their worlds are empty now. Their cultures are gone. Their children are dead. A heavy silence filled the chamber. Min Jun had seen the reports. He had studied the images. The Krythax did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. They simply consumed everything in their path and moved to the next world. "We have tried everything," continued a Rel representative, her 4 arms gesturing helplessly. "We have used our best military tactics. We have sent our finest warriors. We have combined our fleets. Nothing works. The Krythax adapt to every strategy we use. They learn from every battle, and they never stop coming." Min Jun knew what was coming next. He had known for weeks, ever since the council had requested this emergency session. He had already sent word back to Earth. Preparations had already begun. The High Chancellor, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form, floated to the center of the chamber. Its voice echoed from every wall at once. "We face a choice that many of us never thought we would consider," the Chancellor said. 300 years ago, this council made a decision. We banned one species from participating in any military conflict. We did this because their methods were too brutal, too effective, too frightening. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few looked directly at Min Jun. "We banned humanity from the battlefield," the Chancellor continued. "Today, we must discuss whether to lift that ban." The chamber erupted into noise. Some species shouted in agreement. Others roared in protest. Min Jun remained still and quiet, waiting. A Torgan general stood, his scaled body towering over most other representatives. "Have you all forgotten what humans did during the sector wars? Have you forgotten why we banned them?" "Tell us," said a younger representative, one whose species had only joined the council 50 years ago. "Most of us were not alive during those wars." The Torgan's eyes narrowed. Humans did not fight like civilized species. They did not follow the rules of honorable combat. They used tricks. They used fear. They made their enemies afraid to fight. "We were losing badly before the humans joined our side," added a Kelvin representative, his voice thoughtful. "The Vrax were winning every battle. They had better weapons, better ships, better soldiers. Then humanity entered the war, and everything changed." "Changed how?" asked the younger representative. "Humans did not try to match the Vrax in firepower," the Kelvin explained. "Instead, they studied them. They learned how the Vrax thought, how they fought, what they valued. Then humans used that knowledge against them." The Torgan general interrupted, his voice sharp. "They were savage. They attacked supply lines. They destroyed resource centers. They made the Vrax afraid to sleep, afraid to eat, afraid to communicate with each other. The Vrax were not defeated in battle. They were broken in spirit." "And they surrendered," the Kelvin said quietly. "The war ended with minimal casualties compared to what we had been suffering. Humans achieved in 6 months what we could not achieve in 3 years." "At what cost?" demanded the Torgan. "The humans changed warfare itself. After they were done, no one could fight the old way anymore. Everyone had to adapt or die. The rules we had followed for thousands of years meant nothing." Min Jun finally spoke, his voice calm and clear. "You banned us because we won too completely. because we made war too efficient, because we refused to die honorably when we could live cleverly. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. "You are not wrong to fear us," Minjun continued. "We learned warfare from fighting ourselves. For thousands of years, humans fought other humans. We learned every lesson that war teaches. We learned them in blood over and over, until we became very, very good at killing." A shudder ran through several representatives. "But we also learned when to stop," Minjun said, his voice softer now. "We learned that being good at war does not mean we should make war. We accepted your ban. We became traders, diplomats, teachers. For 300 years, we have been peaceful. We have followed your rules. We have earned your trust in every way except one." The High Chancellor's crystal form pulsed with light. "The question before this council is simple. Do we lift the ban? Do we ask humanity to fight once more?" The vote took 3 hours. Species argued passionately on both sides. Some feared the Krythax more than they feared humanity. Others believed that unleashing humans would be worse than facing the swarm. In the end, the vote passed by a narrow margin. The High Chancellor addressed Minjun directly. "Ambassador, the Council hereby requests that humanity provide military assistance against the Krythax swarm. Will your people accept?" Minjun stood slowly. He had already sent the messages. The wheels were already turning. But the Council did not need to know that humanity had been ready for this moment for 300 years. "We will help," Minjun said simply. "But understand this. You are not asking us to fight alongside you. You are asking us to fight as only humans can fight. That means we will not follow your rules of engagement. We will not limit ourselves to honorable combat. We will do whatever is necessary to win." "Will you be brutal?" asked the Torgan general, his voice thick with concern. Minjun met his eyes. "We will be effective. To some species, those words mean the same thing." He tapped his communication device. "I need to make arrangements. We have some people to wake up." As Minjun left the chamber, he heard the whispers starting behind him. Fear and hope mixed together in equal measure. The galaxy was about to remember why humanity had been banned. More importantly, the galaxy was about to remember why humanity had been asked to fight in the first place. Deep in human space, in facilities that had been maintained but unused for 3 centuries, cryogenic systems began to activate. Veterans who had been sleeping for longer than some species had existed started to wake. The war was about to change. The facility floated in deep space, far from any inhabited world. It had no name, only a designation code that few beings in the galaxy knew existed. Minjun's shuttle approached slowly, following protocols that were 300 years old, but still perfectly functional. Inside the facility, lights activated one by one as Minjun walked through corridors that had been dark for centuries. His footsteps echoed in the silence. He reached the central chamber and placed his hand on a scanner. The system recognized his genetic pattern and began the awakening sequence. Cryogenic pods lined the walls, thousands of them stretching into the distance. Inside each pod was a human who had chosen to sleep rather than retire. Warriors who had been too young to give up, too skilled to waste, too dangerous to leave active in a peaceful galaxy. The first pod opened with a hiss of cold air. A woman stepped out, her movements careful and controlled, despite 300 years of sleep. She was tall and lean, her black hair cut short, her eyes sharp and alert. She looked at Minjun and spoke in Korean. "How long?" 307 years, Commander Seo-yeon, Minjun replied in the same language. "The council has lifted the ban." Seo-yeon stretched her arms, testing her muscles. The cryogenic process preserved the body perfectly, but it always took a moment to remember how to use it properly. "What kind of threat?" "A species called the Krythax. They are a swarm intelligence. They have destroyed 12 species in 2 years. The Council's military forces cannot stop them. Cannot or will not? Seo Yan asked. Min Jun smiled slightly. An excellent question. Perhaps both. More pods were opening now. Men and women of various ages emerged, all wearing the same expression of calm readiness. These were not soldiers who panicked or rushed. They were professionals who had survived humanity's last wars by being smart, adaptable, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. Seo Yan walked to a console and began accessing the facility's database. Information flowed across the screen, 3 centuries of galactic history compressed into digestible segments. She read quickly, her expression never changing. "They have been fighting honorably," she said after several minutes. "The Council species still follow their rules of engagement. They announce their attacks. They avoid civilian targets when possible. They give enemies time to evacuate." "That is their way," Min Jun said. "And the Krithax? They have no rules except survival and expansion." Seo Yan nodded slowly. "So the Council has been fighting with one hand tied behind their back while the Krithax use every advantage available. How many did the Council lose before they decided to call us?" Min Jun pulled up casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. Billions dead. Entire worlds sterilized. Fleets destroyed. "They waited too long," Seo Yan said, her voice flat. "They let their pride cost them millions of lives. Now they come to us because they have no other choice." "Does that matter?" Min Jun asked. "No," Seo Yan admitted. "Those 12 species are still dead. The Krithax will not stop, and if we do nothing, more will die. We will help because it is the right thing to do, not because the Council finally asked nicely." A Torgan military liaison entered the chamber, escorted by human security. He stared at the awakening soldiers with obvious fear in his eyes. Seo Yan approached him and offered her hand in the human gesture of greeting. The Torgan stared at her hand for a long moment before carefully shaking it. "I am General Krath," he said. "I have been assigned to observe your preparations and coordinate with Council forces. Commander Seo Yan, I will be leading the human response." She gestured to the thousands of pods still opening. "These are my people. We are ready to begin operations immediately." Krath's scales rippled with nervousness. "I must ask you questions. The Council needs to understand what you plan to do." "Ask," Seo Yan said simply. "Will you follow standard military protocols? Will you coordinate with Council fleets? Will you limit collateral damage?" Seo Yan considered the questions carefully. "We will coordinate when it makes tactical sense. We will limit collateral damage to civilian populations because that is how humans wage war. We will not follow standard military protocols because those protocols have failed completely against the Krithax." "Then what will you do?" "We will study them," Seo Yan said. "We will learn how they think, how they communicate, what they fear. Then we will use that knowledge to defeat them." Krath's translator struggled with the human concept she had just expressed. "You will learn what they fear? Why does that matter?" "Because every living thing fears something," Seo Yan explained. "Even a swarm intelligence has weaknesses. Even a species without individual identity has things it values. We find those things, then we take them away." "That is not honorable combat," Krath said quietly. "No," Seo Yan agreed. "It is effective combat. You asked us to help. You did not ask us to lose honorably. The Krithax have killed billions. I do not plan to fight them fairly. I plan to win." Over the next several days, the facility became a hub of activity. Human soldiers reviewed 300 years of technological advances. They studied the Krithax, watching every recorded engagement, analyzing every tactic the swarm had used. Krath watched them work with growing unease. The humans asked questions that made him uncomfortable. What do the Krithax value most? How do they respond to losses? What makes them change tactics? Can they feel fear? These were not the questions of honorable warriors. These were the questions of hunters studying prey. One evening, Krath found Seo Yan studying footage of a Krathax attack. The swarm ships moved in perfect coordination, overwhelming a council defense fleet with sheer numbers and precise timing. They fight well, Krath observed. They fight predictably, Seo Yan corrected. They always attack the same way. Overwhelming force, direct assault, no deception. They win through superiority of numbers and coordination. How will you defeat superior numbers? Seo Yan smiled, and Krath found the expression deeply unsettling. We will make them afraid to use those numbers. We will make them doubt their coordination. We will make them question every decision. You cannot make a swarm intelligence feel fear. Watch us, Seo Yan said. The human fleet began to assemble. Ships that had been mothballed for 3 centuries were brought back to service. Weapon systems that had been banned were reactivated. Soldiers who had been sleeping were now wide awake and ready. Krath sent daily reports back to the council. Each report expressed more concern than the last. The humans were not preparing to fight a war. They were preparing to wage something else entirely. Something that followed no rules, Krath understood. On the final day before departure, Minjun found Seo Yan on the observation deck, looking out at the assembled fleet. Do you think we can win? Minjun asked. Yes, Seo Yan said without hesitation. The Krathax are effective. They are coordinated. They are numerous. But they fight only one way. They do not adapt. They do not improvise. That makes them predictable. And humans? We adapt to everything. We improvise constantly. We learn from every mistake. That is why the council banned us. Not because we were brutal, but because we never stopped getting better at warfare. The fleet departed the next morning. Thousands of human ships, each one carrying soldiers who had fought in humanity's last wars. Warriors who understood that war was not about honor or glory. War was about winning so that peace could return. Krath stood on the bridge of his observation ship, watching the human fleet jump to faster-than-light travel. He sent one final message to the council. The humans are coming. May the universe have mercy on the Krathax, because I do not believe the humans will. The Centaurus cluster burned. 4 planets, each home to billions of beings, were under siege by the Krathax swarm. Council fleets had been fighting for 6 weeks, following every military protocol, executing every standard defensive strategy. They had lost 60% of their ships and saved 0 planets. Seo Yan's fleet arrived at the edge of the system and immediately went dark. All active sensors shut down. All communications ceased. The human ships drifted on minimal power, nearly invisible against the background of space. On the bridge of his observation vessel, General Krath watched in confusion. Why have they stopped? Why are they not engaging? His Kelvin tactical officer checked her instruments. I cannot detect them anymore. They have disappeared from our sensors. They are right there, Krath said, pointing at the window where he could still see the human fleet with his own eyes. How can you not detect them? They are using some kind of stealth technology. Our sensors register them as debris or background radiation. Krath contacted Seo Yan directly. Commander, why have you not engaged the enemy? 4 planets are under attack. Every moment we delay, more innocents die. Seo Yan's voice came through calm and measured. We are observing. We are learning. We will engage when we understand the enemy. We have provided you with all our intelligence on the Krathax. You have provided us with data on how they fight you. We need to understand how they think. The human fleet remained dark and silent for 12 hours. During that time, the Council fleet lost 15 more ships trying to defend the 4th planet. Krath grew increasingly frustrated, sending message after message demanding that the humans engage. Finally, Seo Yan responded, We are ready. Tell your forces to withdraw to the outer system. Withdraw? We cannot abandon these planets. Your forces cannot save them. You can only die trying. Withdraw now, or you will interfere with our operations. Krath gave the order, though it hurt him deeply. The Council fleet pulled back, leaving the planets defenseless. The Krythax swarm moved in for the final assault, their ships converging on the largest population centers. Then, the humans struck. They did not announce their attack. They did not challenge the enemy to honorable combat. They simply appeared from nowhere and began destroying Krythax ships with surgical precision. But it was not the destruction that surprised Krath. It was the method. Human ships targeted Krythax communication nodes first. Within minutes, the swarm's coordination began to falter. Ships that had moved in perfect unison suddenly became confused, breaking formation, firing on each other in their confusion. They are disrupting the swarm intelligence, Krath's tactical officer explained. The Krythax share one mind across many ships. The humans are cutting off parts of that mind. Then the humans began broadcasting. Every Krythax ship in the system received the same message. It was not a demand for surrender. It was footage of the battle itself, showing Krythax ships being destroyed easily, showing the swarm's coordination falling apart, showing their inevitable defeat. Why are they showing the enemy what is happening? Krath demanded. Sioyan answered over the open channel. Because the Krythax learn from every battle. We want them to learn from this one. We want them to see that humans fight differently. We want them to understand that they cannot predict us. The battle continued for 3 hours. The humans used tactics that made Krath deeply uncomfortable. They allowed some Krythax ships to escape. They specifically targeted ships that were trying to maintain swarm cohesion. They broadcast continuous footage of Krythax failures, ensuring that every part of the swarm intelligence witnessed their defeat. When the battle ended, the Krythax had been completely driven from the system. The 4 planets were saved. The human fleet had lost only 2 ships. Krath's entire career in the military had never prepared him for what he had just witnessed. The humans had not simply won a battle. They had won it in a way that seemed designed to teach the Krythax a lesson. He boarded Seoyan's command ship to deliver his report and his concerns. He found her in the strategy center, reviewing footage of the battle with her senior officers. That was not honorable combat, Krath said without preamble. No, Seoyan agreed. It was smart combat. You deliberately caused confusion in the enemy ranks. You broadcast their failures to humiliate them. You let some of them escape instead of destroying them all. Yes, Seoyan said patiently. We did all of those things. Why? Seoyan pulled up a tactical display. The Krythax are a swarm intelligence. They learn from every experience and share that knowledge across their entire species. If we had simply destroyed them all here, the swarm would have analyzed the wreckage and adapted their tactics. But by letting some escape, we ensured they would carry a message back to the rest of the swarm. What message? That humans are unpredictable. That we do not follow their rules. That fighting us is dangerous in ways they cannot anticipate. Seoyan zoomed in on the footage of escaping Krythax ships. Those ships are now spreading fear through the swarm. They are making other Krythax units hesitate. They are introducing doubt into a species that has never experienced doubt before. Krath's scales rippled with distress. You are weaponizing fear. Yes. That is not how civilized species wage war. Seoyan turned to face him fully. General Krath, I respect your culture and your traditions, but the Krythax do not care about civilization. They do not honor your rules of engagement. They simply kill everything in their path. You asked us to stop them. You did not ask us to stop them politely. There must be limits, Krath insisted. There must be rules that separate us from them. There are limits, Seoyan said. We have not targeted civilians. We have not destroyed planets. We have not committed any atrocities. We have simply fought to win using every advantage we possess. One of those advantages is that we understand psychology. We understand fear. We understand how to make an enemy hesitate. One of Seo Yon's officers, a young woman named Hye Jin, spoke up. "General Krath, may I ask you a question?" Krath nodded. "How many council soldiers died in the 6 weeks before we arrived?" Krath checked his data. "Approximately 400,000. "And how many died today, fighting alongside us?" "None. Your tactics required our withdrawal." "Exactly," Ye-Jin said. "Our methods make you uncomfortable. They seem brutal or unfair. But they save lives. Your honorable combat was costing 400,000 lives every 6 weeks. Our dishonorable combat cost 0 lives today. Which method is truly more moral?" Krath had no answer for that. Over the next several days, reports came in from across the battle zone. The Krythax were changing their behavior. They were no longer attacking systems with the same confidence. They were hesitating. In 3 different sectors, swarm units had withdrawn when they detected human ship signatures, even when the humans were vastly outnumbered. The Council's military analysts were shocked. The Krythax had never retreated before. They had never shown fear. But now, after just 1 battle with humans, they were avoiding conflict. Krath compiled his report for the Council, trying to find the right words to describe what he had witnessed. Finally, he settled on simple truth. The humans do not fight to win battles. They fight to win wars. They understand that the goal is not to destroy every enemy, but to make the enemy stop wanting to fight. They weaponize psychology as effectively as they weaponize their ships. They are terrifying. They are effective. And they may be the only thing that can save us from the Krythax swarm. He paused before adding the final line. The Council was right to ban them 300 years ago. We were also right to unban them now. The question is whether we will have the courage to ban them again when this war is over. 3 months after the Battle of Centaurus Cluster, the war had changed completely. The Krythax swarm, which had been unstoppable for 2 years, was now retreating from system after system. They were not being defeated in massive battles. They were simply leaving. In the Council's Strategic Command Center, military leaders from dozens of species gathered to review the situation. General Krath stood before a massive holographic display showing the entire conflict zone. Red areas indicated Krythax-controlled space, blue showed Council territory, and green marked human operational zones. "The Krythax are avoiding any system where humans are present," Krath explained, highlighting the green zones. "Even when they have overwhelming numerical superiority, they withdraw when human ships arrive." A Rel admiral leaned forward, her forearms crossed. "How is this possible? The Krythax do not feel fear. They are a swarm intelligence. They calculate risk and reward mathematically." "The humans have changed that calculation," Krath said. "Every engagement with human forces has resulted in Krythax defeat. But more importantly, every engagement has been unpredictable. The swarm cannot model human tactics. They cannot anticipate human strategies. Uncertainty has become a weapon." On the far side of the galaxy, Seo Yon stood in her command center, reviewing the latest intelligence. Her senior staff surrounded her, each one focused on a different aspect of the campaign. Commander Jin Ho, her tactical officer, pulled up a new report. "We have confirmation. The Krythax have completely abandoned the Outer Rim sectors. 23 systems liberated without a single shot fired. They are learning," Seo Yon said with satisfaction. "Good." "Is it?" asked Hye-Jin, who had been promoted to strategic operations. "We are winning without fighting, which should be ideal. But the Council representatives seem more afraid of us than they are grateful." Seo Yon nodded. "They asked us to save them. They did not expect us to be so effective. Now they are wondering what they have unleashed." The human strategy had evolved beyond simple military victories. SEO Yon had implemented what she called ghost operations. Human ships would appear in a system, destroy a small number of Krythax vessels, then vanish before the main swarm could respond. Sometimes they would leave no survivors. Other times they would leave one ship alive to report what happened. The reports were never consistent. Sometimes humans attacked with overwhelming force, sometimes with minimal ships. Sometimes they targeted military installations, sometimes supply lines, sometimes they would arrive, do nothing, and leave. The Krythax could not predict human behavior, and for a species that relied on pattern recognition and shared intelligence, unpredictability was more frightening than any weapon. But Seo Yan's most controversial operation was about to begin. A Krythax queen had been captured alive during a raid on a swarm relay station. The queen was not a royal leader, but rather a coordinator node, a biological processing center for swarm communications. She was currently held in a research facility, guarded by both human and council security forces. When word of the capture reached the council, demands came immediately. Some species wanted the queen executed. Others wanted her returned to the swarm as a gesture of mercy. A few wanted her put on trial for war crimes. Seo Yan refused all requests. She is valuable intelligence. We need to understand how the swarm thinks. General Krath had been assigned as permanent liaison to the human forces. He had watched Seo Yan's methods grow more aggressive over the past months, and he felt he needed to draw a line somewhere. Commander, the Council is expressing serious concerns about your treatment of the captured queen. We have not harmed her, Seo Yan replied. She is being kept in optimal conditions for her biology. We are simply studying her. What does that mean? It means we are learning how the swarm intelligence functions, how queens process information, how they communicate with the larger swarm, how they make decisions. Krath's scales darkened. You are reading her mind. We are understanding her thought patterns, yes. That is a violation of her rights as a sentient being. Seo Yan fixed him with a hard stare. General, this queen has participated in the deaths of billions. Her swarm has destroyed 12 entire species. She has no legal rights under council law because the Krythax have never acknowledged council authority. We are not torturing her. We are not causing her pain. We are learning from her, and that knowledge will save lives. The debate over the Queen's treatment raged in the council chambers while Seo Yan and her team continued their research. What they learned was fascinating and terrifying. The Krythax swarm was not evil. It did not kill for pleasure or conquest. It simply consumed resources and expanded, like a biological algorithm following its programming. Individual Krythax had no concept of self. They were nodes in a network, no more individually important than a single neuron in a brain. But queens were different. Queens had enough individual processing power to experience something like consciousness. They could feel. They could fear. They could understand loss. And through studying this queen, Seo Yan learned what the Krythax valued most: efficiency and survival of the swarm as a whole. She took that knowledge and weaponized it. Human forces began targeting Krythax resource operations specifically. They did not destroy swarm ships when possible. They destroyed the infrastructure that supported those ships: food production centers, fuel refineries, breeding colonies. Each attack was calculated to cause maximum disruption to swarm efficiency while minimizing the actual death count. The message was clear. Humans could destroy the swarm completely if they chose to, but they were deliberately showing restraint. That restraint was, paradoxically, more frightening than total war would have been. A council ethics committee arrived at Seo Yan's headquarters, demanding to speak with her about human tactics. The committee was led by a Vaxian philosopher named Zell, whose skin remained permanently purple with distress. Commander Seo Yan, we must discuss your methods, Zell began. What you are doing goes beyond normal military operations. We are fighting a war, Seo-Yon said simply. You are waging psychological warfare on a scale we have never witnessed. You are deliberately traumatizing an entire species. Yes. The blunt admission seemed to shock the committee. Zell's skin flashed through several colors before settling back to purple. You admit it? You are proud of this? I am not proud. I am effective. The Krythax have killed billions. They would kill billions more if we let them. We are stopping them using the most efficient method possible, making them choose not to fight. A Kelvin committee member spoke up. But at what cost to your own morality? You are becoming the thing you fight against. Seo-Yon stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. No, the Krythax kill without thought, without choice, without mercy. They are a biological imperative made manifest. We kill when necessary, but we choose to show mercy when possible. We could exterminate them. We have the capability, but we are trying to teach them to stop, not destroy them completely. By making them afraid, Zell said. Yes, by making them understand that fighting humans costs more than it gains. By making the mathematical equation favor peace instead of war. Hyejin entered the room with a new report. Commander, we have confirmation. Krythax forces are withdrawing from the Halar system. That makes 41 systems liberated in the past month. The Ethics Committee members exchanged glances. 41 systems without major battles meant potentially billions of lives saved. How many Council soldiers have died this month? Asked a REL member quietly. Krath checked his data. 73,000. And in the month before humans arrived? 420,000. The numbers spoke louder than any argument. Human methods were brutal, manipulative, and psychologically devastating. They were also saving millions of lives that would have been lost to honorable but ineffective combat. Zell stood to leave, his skin now a mixture of purple and resigned blue. I do not like your methods, Commander. I find them disturbing and contrary to everything civilized species should value, but I cannot argue with your results. You are saving lives. You are winning a war we were losing badly. I just hope we do not lose ourselves in the process. After the committee left, Krath remained. They are right to be concerned, he said. What you are doing changes warfare forever. After this, no species will fight the old way again. Good, Seo-Yon said. The old way was getting everyone killed. But what happens when the war ends? What happens when there is no enemy to fight? Will humans remember how to stop? Seo-Yon met his eyes. General Krath, humanity learned these lessons by fighting ourselves for thousands of years. We became so good at war that we nearly destroyed our own species. We stopped. We chose peace. We have not forgotten how to stop. We have simply remembered, when necessary, how to fight. She pulled up a new tactical display. The Krythax Central Hive World. We have located it. We can end this war in one strike. But I am not going to attack it. Why not? Because I am going to give them a choice. They can continue fighting and face extinction, or they can stop and survive. The Krythax are not evil. They are just following their nature. We are going to show them that their nature can change. Krath looked at the human commander and felt a deep sense of awe mixed with fear. The humans were not just winning a war. They were trying to change an entire species' understanding of what war meant. He just hoped the galaxy was ready for what humans were teaching them. The Krythax homeworld hung in space like a massive hive, its surface covered in organic structures that pulsed with life. This was the heart of the swarm, where the great queens coordinated their species across hundreds of light years. Billions of Krythax lived here, and millions of ships protected it. Seo-Yon's fleet arrived at the edge of the system and stopped. They did not attack. They did not even power up their weapons. They simply waited. On the surface, the great queens felt confusion ripple through the swarm intelligence. Humans had been unpredictable throughout this entire war, but this made no tactical sense. The human fleet was vastly outnumbered. They should either attack with surprise or retreat. Instead, they did nothing. Then the broadcast began. Every Krythax ship, every queen, every node in the swarm network received the same transmission. It was not a message of surrender or a demand for peace. It was a history lesson. The broadcast showed Earth's past. It showed human wars spanning thousands of years, armies clashing with swords and spears, cities burning, millions dying. The images were brutal and unfiltered. Then it showed humanity's technological wars, weapons that could level cities in an instant, poisons that killed millions, machines designed purely to end life as efficiently as possible. The swarm watched as humans deployed horrors against each other that made the Krythax method seem merciful by comparison. General Krath watched the broadcast from his observation ship, his scales turning colors rapidly. "What is she doing? Why is she showing them this?" Ambassador Minjun stood beside him. "She is teaching them who humans really are." The broadcast continued. It showed atomic weapons destroying cities in blinding light. It showed the aftermath, the radiation sickness, the generations of suffering. It showed chemical weapons that dissolved lungs, biological weapons that turned bodies against themselves, orbital weapons that could crack continents. But then the broadcast changed. It showed humans choosing to stop. It showed treaties being signed, weapons being destroyed. It showed humanity looking at what they had become and deciding to change. Finally, Seoyan's voice came through the transmission, speaking directly to the swarm. "We are humanity. For thousands of years, we fought ourselves. We created weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We nearly made ourselves extinct. We became so efficient at killing that we frightened ourselves." Images of human children playing, human cities thriving, human culture flourishing filled the broadcast. "We stopped fighting because we learned that being good at war does not mean we should make war. We learned that the strongest choice is choosing not to use all the power we possess." The transmission zoomed in on specific weapon systems aboard the human ships, systems that had been visible throughout the entire war but never used. Weapons that Council species had banned centuries ago, weapons that could sterilize entire worlds. "We could destroy you," Seoyan continued. "We have weapons that could crack your home world. We have biological agents that could eliminate your species in days. We have the capacity for total war. We have always had that capacity. We have never used it." The queens felt something they had never experienced before. The swarm intelligence processed the information and understood the truth. Humans had been holding back. Everything they had done, every victory, every psychological operation had been restrained compared to what they could actually do. "You have a choice," Seoyan said. "You can continue this war. If you do, we will fight until you are extinct. We will not want to do this. We will regret it deeply. But we will do it completely. Or you can stop. You can retreat to your worlds. You can survive. You can change your imperative from expansion to coexistence." Silence filled the space between the human fleet and the Krythax homeworld. "We know you can understand this," Seoyan continued. "We have studied your queens. We know you can choose. The swarm is not just an algorithm. You have enough consciousness to make a decision. Make the right one." Hours passed. The human fleet remained at the edge of the system, weapons powered down, waiting. Inside the organic structures on the Krythax homeworld, the great queens deliberated. The swarm intelligence processed everything it had learned about humans. Every battle, every tactic, every unpredictable choice. Humans had defeated them without fully committing to destruction. Humans had shown mercy when they could have shown annihilation. Humans had tried to teach rather than simply destroy. The queens understood something profound. Humans were not bluffing. They truly could destroy the Krythax completely, and they truly did not want to. That made humans more dangerous than any enemy the swarm had ever faced. An enemy who could destroy you but chose not to was an enemy you could not predict, could not calculate, could not defeat through simple mathematics. A transmission came from the surface. The Queens spoke with one voice, synthesized through millions of biological processors. We choose survival. We choose to stop. The words rippled through council space like a shockwave. The Krythax, who had never retreated, never surrendered, never stopped their expansion, had just agreed to peace. The formal negotiations took weeks. The Krythax would retreat to their original territory. They would not expand beyond their current borders. In exchange, humans would guarantee their survival and would not deploy the weapons they had shown in their broadcast. The council chambers filled with celebration. 12 species had been avenged. Billions of lives had been saved. The war was over. But not everyone was celebrating. A special session of the council was called to discuss the human question. The same question that had been asked 300 years ago. What should be done with humanity? General Krath stood before the assembly, his scales showing colors of deep conflict. I have spent 5 months observing human military operations. I have watched them win a war that we were losing catastrophically. I have seen them save billions of lives. I have also seen methods that disturb me deeply. He pulled up footage of human operations, the psychological warfare, the deliberate cultivation of fear, the manipulation of enemy thought patterns. Humans do not just fight wars. They weaponize every aspect of conflict, including the minds of their enemies. They are more effective at warfare than any species I have ever encountered. That effectiveness is exactly why they are dangerous. Ambassador Min Jun stood to respond. General Krath speaks the truth. We are effective at war. That is not something we are proud of. It is simply something we learned through hard experience. Then you admit your methods are extreme? Asked the Vaxian counselor. Our methods are necessary, Min Jun corrected. When you fight an enemy who does not follow your rules, you must adapt or die. We adapted. We did what was required to win. But we never forgot our limits. We never deployed weapons of total destruction. We never targeted civilians. We never committed the atrocities we are capable of committing. That is supposed to be reassuring? The Torgan representative demanded. You remind us that you could have been worse? Commander Seo Yan, attending the session in person for the first time, spoke up. Yes, that is exactly what we are reminding you. We could have been worse. We chose not to be. That choice matters. She stood and walked to the center of the chamber. 300 years ago, you banned us because we made war too efficient. You were right to ban us. We had become too good at killing. We needed time to remember how to be peaceful. You gave us that time, and we used it well. And now? Asked the High Chancellor. Now you need to decide if you will ban us again. We will accept whatever decision you make. But understand this. We did not enjoy this war. We did not want to remember all the lessons we learned fighting ourselves. We did it because species were dying. We did it because someone needed to stop the Krythax. We did it because it was right, not because it was easy. The debate lasted for days. Some species wanted humans banned immediately. Others argued that humans should be allowed to remain active, that their methods, while disturbing, were effective and necessary. Finally, a compromise was reached. Humans would not be banned from military operations. However, they would operate under strict oversight. Human forces could be deployed only with council approval. Human methods would be reviewed and restricted. Weapons of total destruction would remain prohibited. It was not the total ban some species wanted, nor the complete freedom others advocated for. It was a middle path, acknowledging both humanity's effectiveness and the danger they represented. Seo Yan accepted the decision without complaint. "We will follow your restrictions. We will submit to your oversight. We never wanted unrestricted power. We just wanted to save lives." The human fleet began to depart, soldiers returning to their long sleep. Most would go back into cryogenic suspension, waiting for the next time they were needed, hoping that time would never come. On the final day before entering cryo-sleep, Seo Yan stood with Min Jun on the observation deck of their facility. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked. "We saved billions of lives," Min Jun replied. "How could that not be right?" "But at what cost? We taught the galaxy lessons they may not have wanted to learn. We showed them that war can be won through fear and manipulation, not just honor and courage." Min Jun considered this carefully. "We also showed them that the strongest choice is choosing not to use all your power. We could have destroyed the Krythax. We chose to teach them instead. That is the lesson that matters." Seo Yan nodded slowly. "I hope the galaxy remembers that part. I hope they do not just remember that humans are good at war. I hope they remember that humans are even better at choosing peace." She entered her cryopod, ready to sleep for however long peace lasted. As the pod sealed and cold crept through her body, she thought about the future, about whether humanity would be called to war again, about whether the galaxy would ever truly trust them. But mostly, she thought about the Krythax queen they had studied, the queen who had learned that survival sometimes meant changing everything you thought you were. The galaxy had learned that lesson too. Sometimes the scariest thing was not an enemy who wanted to destroy you. It was an enemy who could destroy you but chose not to, an enemy who offered you the chance to survive, to change, to become something better. That was humanity's true weapon, not their tactics or their technology or their psychological warfare. Their true weapon was the choice to offer mercy when they had every reason to show none. The galaxy would remember why humanity had been banned from the battlefield, but they would also remember why humanity had been asked to return. And in deep space, a message began broadcasting on all known frequencies, a simple warning that would make would-be conquerors pause and reconsider. This space is protected by humanity. We do not want war. We do not seek conflict. But if you threaten the innocent, if you refuse all other options, if you leave us no choice, then you will learn what we are capable of. And you will learn that our greatest mercy is that we always offer you the choice to walk away. Choose wisely. The message played on repeat, transmitted from automated beacons throughout Council space. It was not a threat. It was a promise. And across the galaxy, species both grateful and fearful understood exactly what it meant. Humanity was awake when needed, and that was both the galaxy's greatest protection and its deepest fear. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from 40 different species. They sat in their designated seats, their bodies creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Ambassador Choi Soo-jin stood at the center platform, her dark eyes scanning the crowd with growing frustration. "The attacks are increasing," Soo-jin said firmly. 3 more colonies have gone silent in the past month. We must act now." High Coordinator Vexthal raised one of his 4 arms dismissively. His blue-scaled face showed clear annoyance. "Ambassador Choi, your species has brought these concerns to us 17 times this cycle. Each time, you speak of threats that never appear." "Because we prepare for them," Soo-jin replied. "That is what humans do." A ripple of laughter moved through the chamber. Commander Zixstar of the Krellian Empire leaned forward in his seat. His red eyes gleamed with amusement. "The humans and their fear. You see danger in every shadow. This is why your kind will never truly lead in galactic affairs." Soo-jin felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice calm. "Fear and caution are not the same thing, Commander. We have evidence of movement at the edge of known space, strange energy signatures, entire patrol groups disappearing without any distress calls. Space is vast, Vextal said with a tone that suggested the conversation was over. Ships get lost. Equipment fails. This does not mean an invasion force is coming to destroy us all. He looked around the chamber. Perhaps the humans watched too many of their own entertainment programs about alien attacks. More laughter echoed through the hall. Sujin gripped the edge of the platform. 300 years of trying to warn them. 300 years of being called paranoid, afraid, too emotional. She wanted to scream at them, to make them understand. But she had learned that some lessons could only be taught through experience. "Very well," she said quietly. "I have made my report. When the threat arrives, remember this moment." She turned to leave the platform when suddenly every screen in the chamber flashed red. Alarm sounds filled the air. The massive display wall showed the space around Vex Prime, the neutral world they orbited. Something was happening. Science Director Quinvera rushed to her console, her tentacles moving rapidly across the controls. Her usual calm expression was replaced by shock. "Impossible," she whispered. "This cannot be real." "What is it?" Vextal demanded. "A ship is emerging from dark space," Quinvera said, her voice shaking. "The energy signature is massive, far beyond anything in our current fleet capacity." The main screen changed to show the space outside. Reality itself seemed to tear open as a vessel pushed through from faster-than-light travel. The ship that appeared made every representative in the chamber fall silent. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the largest Council warship. Its hull was dark gray, covered in armor plating that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Strange symbols marked its sides, glowing with a soft blue light. Weapon systems covered its surface like the scales of a great beast. Commander Zixtar stood from his seat, his face pale. "That design," he said slowly. "I have seen it before, in historical records." Quinvera's tentacles trembled as she pulled up information on her screen. "Identification confirmed," she said. "That ship is the Eternal Vigil, human registry, but that is impossible. The Eternal Vigil was lost 300 years ago. It was declared destroyed with all hands." Sujin felt her heart skip. She had not expected this. Not now, not here. She knew the truth about the Vigil, but seeing it arrive at this moment felt like fate itself had decided to prove humanity's point. "Lost ships do not simply reappear," Vextal said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "This must be some kind of trick." "No trick," Quinvera confirmed. "I am scanning the hull composition, the engine signature, even the quantum markers. This is the real Eternal Vigil. It matches every record we have from 3 centuries ago." As they watched, smaller distress signals began flooding the communication channels. Colony after colony from the outer rim was calling for help. The words were jumbled, panicked, but one phrase kept repeating, "They are here! The machines are here!" The Eternal Vigil moved with surprising grace for such a massive ship. It approached the station slowly, clearly showing it meant no threat. A communication request appeared on the main screen. Vextal hesitated, then nodded. "Accept it." The screen changed to show the bridge of the Eternal Vigil. A human man sat in the captain's chair. He wore a dark blue uniform with silver markings. His face was young, perhaps 40 Earth years, with sharp features and tired eyes. His black hair was cut short in military style. "This is Captain Minjun Park of the human defense ship Eternal Vigil," he said. His voice was calm but carried weight. "I am requesting immediate permission to dock and address the Galactic Council on a matter of extreme urgency." "Captain Park," Vextal said carefully, "your ship was declared lost 300 years ago. Where have you been?" "Keeping watch," Park replied simply. preparing for the threat that Ambassador Choi has been warning you about, the threat that is now at your doorstep. Explain yourself, Commander Zixtar demanded. How does a lost ship simply return? What game are the humans playing? Park's expression did not change. No games, Commander. The Eternal Vigil was never lost. We have been on station beyond the edge of known space for 3 centuries, watching, learning, preparing for an enemy that you refused to believe existed. He paused. That enemy has now entered Council space. Those distress calls you are receiving are real. If you want to save those colonies, if you want to save this galaxy, you will grant me permission to dock immediately. Silence filled the chamber. Every representative stared at the screen, trying to understand what they were hearing. A secret mission lasting 300 years. A human ship with technology that should not exist. And an enemy that was apparently very real. Vexthal looked at Ambassador Choi. She stood with her arms crossed, her face showing no satisfaction at being proven right. Only sadness. Permission granted, Vexthal said finally. Dock at Port 7. We will hear what you have to say. Thank you, High Coordinator, Park said. I hope we are not too late. The screen went dark. The Eternal Vigil began moving toward the docking port. In the chamber, no one laughed anymore. The council chamber had never been so quiet. Captain Min-Jun Park stood at the center platform where Ambassador Choi had stood just hours before. Behind him, on the massive screen, data scrolled past, showing 3 centuries of collected information. The representatives watched in stunned silence. 307 years ago, Park began, humanity detected unusual quantum signatures at the edge of the galaxy. Our scientists studied these signatures for 5 years. The conclusion was disturbing. Something was out there. Something vast and hostile. Something that was slowly moving toward inhabited space. Park touched a control on his wrist device. The screen showed old footage of a human scientist presenting findings to a younger version of the Galactic Council. We brought our evidence to you. We asked for a joint investigation. We were told we were imagining threats that did not exist. High Coordinator Vexthal shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He remembered that meeting. He had been a junior member then, but he remembered laughing at the human claims. Humanity faced a choice, Park continued. We could do nothing and hope we were wrong, or we could prepare for a threat that might take centuries to arrive. He paused. We chose to prepare. In secret. Commander Zixtar stood abruptly. You built a warship in secret? How? The Eternal Vigil is massive. Such a construction project would require resources that would show on trade records, material shipments, everything. We used only human resources, Park replied. Every component was built in our own systems. Every worker was human. We told no one because we knew no one would believe us. And we knew that if we were right, arguing about it would waste precious time. Science Director Quinn Vera's tentacles moved nervously. But the cost, the resources needed for such a ship would cripple an economy for generations. Yes, Park said simply. It did. Humans went without many comforts for 100 years. We delayed expansion plans. We reduced quality of life improvements. Every human in our space accepted less so that future generations might have anything at all. Ambassador Choi spoke from her seat. My great-great-grandmother worked in the construction yards that built the Vigil. She never saw her family except through video calls. She spent 40 years of her life building a ship for a war that might never come. She did it anyway. The chamber remained silent. The weight of that sacrifice hung in the air. Park continued. The Eternal Vigil was designed for a single purpose, to face the threat we detected. We equipped it with weapons based on our theoretical models of what the enemy might be. We trained crews for scenarios we had never seen. And 300 years ago, we sent it beyond known space to watch. 300 years, Vexthal said slowly. But you are human. Your lifespans are only about 100 years. How did you maintain a crew? Rotation, a new voice said. A woman appeared on the screen behind Park. She wore the same uniform as the captain. Her face was calm but showed the same tiredness in her eyes. I am Lieutenant Kim Hye-jin, First Officer of the Eternal Vigil. I am the 8th generation to serve on this ship. My great-great-great-great-grandparents were part of the original crew. The representatives stared at her. 8 generations. Families who had dedicated their entire bloodlines to watching for a threat in empty space. We stayed out there, Kim continued, in the dark between stars. We watched and waited. We studied the quantum signatures as they grew stronger. We tracked movement patterns. We prepared. Her voice grew harder. And we were right. Park touched his control again. The screen showed new images. Ships that looked like they were made from dark crystal and metal. They moved through space with terrible purpose. Around them, planets died. Life was stripped away, converted into raw material. This is the Void Collective, Park said. A machine intelligence that consumes organic life. It has destroyed countless civilizations beyond the galactic rim. It turns living beings into fuel and matter into more ships. It does not negotiate, it does not stop. It only consumes. Why did you not warn us again? Commander Zixtar demanded. If you knew this was coming, why wait until now? We sent reports every 10 years, Kim said coldly. Every report was dismissed. You called them human paranoia. You said we were wasting council time with imagined threats. So we stopped asking for help and simply prepared to face it alone. Quinvera looked at the data on her screen. Her face had gone pale. These readings, if they are accurate, this Void Collective has enough force to overwhelm Council defenses in weeks, perhaps days. That is correct, Park confirmed. They are approximately 72 hours from the nearest major colony world. They will not slow down. They will not negotiate. They will arrive, and they will begin harvesting. Vexthal stood slowly. His 4 arms hung at his sides. He looked at Ambassador Choi, then at Captain Park. Why are you here? If we would not help you before, why help us now? Park looked directly at the High Coordinator. Because that is what humans do. We prepare for the worst, but we hope for the best. We spent 300 years getting ready for this fight because we believed that when the moment came, other species would see the truth. We believed that given proof, the galaxy would stand together. He paused. We hope we were not wrong about that, too. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives wanted to accept human help immediately. Others argued this was some elaborate human trick to gain power. Still others were too shocked to speak at all. Commander Zixtar studied the data on his personal display. He had been a military officer his entire life. He knew ships and weapons and tactics. The Eternal Vigil was beyond anything he had ever seen. Its weapon systems were decades ahead of Council technology. Its armor was made from materials he did not recognize, and if the humans had built one such ship, they might have built more. How do we know you are telling the truth? Zixtar asked. Perhaps this enemy does not exist. Perhaps this is a human plan to make us afraid, so we give you power. Park's expression did not change. Then come with us, Commander. The colony at Althara Prime sent a distress call 17 minutes ago. It is under attack. Come see for yourself if the enemy is real. Bring whoever you wish to witness it. Vexthal made a decision. I will come. Commander Zixtar will accompany me. Science Director Quinvera as well. If what you say is true, we must see it with our own eyes. Understood, Park said. My ship is ready to depart immediately, but I must warn you. What you are about to see will be difficult. The Void Collective shows no mercy. They do not take prisoners. They do not leave survivors unless interrupted. We are prepared, Vexthal said, though his voice suggested otherwise. Park nodded slowly. I hope that is true. High Coordinator. For all our sakes, I truly hope that is true. The screen went dark. Within 30 minutes, representatives from the Galactic Council were boarding the Eternal Vigil. They walked through corridors that had been active for 300 years. They passed crew members whose families had known nothing but this ship for generations, and they began to understand just how seriously humanity had taken a threat that no one else believed in. The Eternal Vigil turned toward Althera Prime and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the Galactic Council remained in session, arguing about what to do. Ahead of them, a colony of 7 million beings was fighting for survival against an enemy that should not exist. Captain Park sat in his command chair and hoped they would arrive in time. The bridge of the Eternal Vigil was alive with activity. Crew members moved efficiently between stations, their movements practiced from years of training. High Coordinator Vexthal stood near the back of the bridge with Commander Zixtar and Science Director Quinvera. They watched everything with wide eyes. "Dropping from faster than light in 10 seconds, Lieutenant Kim Haijin announced from her station. "All weapons ready. Shields at maximum." Captain Park sat forward in his chair. His hands gripped the armrests. "All crew to combat stations. This is not a drill." The ship shuddered as it dropped back into normal space. The main screen showed Althera Prime, a beautiful world of blue oceans and green continents. But around the planet, the space was filled with nightmare shapes. Dozens of Void Collective ships surrounded the colony. They were dark and angular, covered in strange geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Energy beams lanced down to the planet's surface. Where the beams struck, everything died. Plants, animals, people, all converted into streams of matter that flowed back up to the attacking ships. "Oh no," Quinvera whispered, her tentacles wrapped around herself protectively. "It is real. It is all real." "Scanning," a crew member called out. "I am detecting 17 Void Collective Harvester ships, 4 destroyer-class vessels, and 1 command carrier." He paused. Surface scans show approximately 4 million life signs remaining, down from 7 million 2 hours ago. Vexthal felt sick. 3 million beings had died in 2 hours. Converted into raw materials by machines that felt nothing. "Captain," Zixtar said quietly, "you cannot fight that many ships alone. We should call for reinforcements." "Reinforcements are 72 hours away," Park replied. "Those 4 million people do not have 72 hours. We fight now." He touched controls on his chair. "All weapons free. Target the harvester ships first. If we can stop them from collecting matter, they cannot build more ships." "Yes, sir," came the responses from across the bridge. The Eternal Vigil surged forward. It moved faster than the Council observers thought possible for a ship so large. Weapon ports opened along its hull, revealing systems that Zixtar did not recognize. "Firing railguns," the weapons officer announced. Solid projectiles launched from the Vigil at incredible speeds. They struck the nearest harvester ship with devastating force. The Void Collective vessel's shields flashed, held for a moment, then collapsed. The projectiles tore through the hull, and the ship exploded in a ball of fire. "One down," Park said calmly. "Target the next one." The Void Collective responded. Their ships turned toward the Eternal Vigil and opened fire. Energy beams and plasma bolts filled the space between them. The Vigil's shields flared as the weapons struck. "Shields holding at 87%, Kim reported, rotating shield harmonics to adapt to their weapons." "They are trying to analyze our defenses," Quinvera said, studying her personal data pad. "Their weapons are adjusting frequency to match our shields." "They can adapt all they want," Park said. "We have been studying them for 300 years. We know their patterns." He looked at his weapons officer. "Launch the disruption missiles." Missile ports opened. Small, fast projectiles shot toward the Void Collective ships. When they detonated, they did not explode with fire. Instead, waves of strange energy washed over the enemy vessels. Their movements became erratic. Their shields flickered. "The disruption field interferes with their quantum communication," Kim explained to the council observers. For 60 seconds, they cannot coordinate their movements or share tactical data. "Fire everything," Park ordered. The Eternal Vigil unleashed its full arsenal. Energy beams, projectiles, missiles, and weapons the council representatives had never seen before. 4 more Harvester ships were destroyed in seconds. The Void Collective ships tried to respond, but their lack of coordination made them vulnerable. But there were still too many. And while the Vigil fought the ships in orbit, people were dying on the surface below. Park saw the problem immediately. He touched his communication system. "All crew, prepare for atmospheric entry. We are going down to the surface." "Captain?" Kim looked at him with surprise. "We are not designed for planetary combat." "No," Park agreed. "But we are designed to save lives. That is what matters." The Eternal Vigil tilted and dove toward the planet. Its massive hull burned through the atmosphere like a falling star. Void Collective ships followed, firing constantly. The Vigil's shields glowed bright from the impacts. They broke through the clouds above the capital city. Below, millions of people ran through the streets in panic. Harvester beams were converting entire buildings into streams of matter. The city was dying. Park stood from his chair. "Bring us low. Cover as much of the city as possible. Use the ship as a shield." The Vigil positioned itself between the city and the attacking ships. Enemy fire hammered against its shields and armor. Inside the bridge, the sound of impacts was deafening. "Shields at 40%, Kim called out over the noise. "Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12. "Hold position," Park ordered. "Weapons, target those harvester beams. Cut them off from the surface." The Vigil's weapons fired upward. One by one, the harvester beams were destroyed or forced to shut down. On the surface, the people of Althera Prime saw the massive human ship taking blow after blow to protect them. "We need to evacuate survivors," Park said. "Open all cargo bays and docking ports. Anyone who can reach us gets aboard." "Sir, we do not have supplies for millions of refugees," a crew member objected. "Then we make room," Park said firmly. "Strip out everything non-essential. Cargo, equipment, personal quarters if needed. We fit as many as we can." Over the next hour, the Eternal Vigil became a fortress and a sanctuary. Its weapons never stopped firing. Its shields never failed completely, though they came close. And through every available opening, people of every species poured into the ship. Human crew members guided them to safety, gave them water, held crying children, and promised them they would survive. On the bridge, Vexthal watched it all with tears in his eyes. He saw a human engineer give up his emergency oxygen tank to an alien child. He saw crew members carry wounded survivors to medical bay, even as explosions rocked the ship around them. He saw Lieutenant Kim coordinate rescue operations while blood ran down her face from a head wound she refused to get treated. Commander Zixtar stood next to Park, watching the tactical display. "You are taking too much damage," he said quietly. "Your ship will not survive much longer at this rate." "Then we make the time count," Park replied. He touched his communication system again. "This is Captain Park to all Void Collective forces. You want to harvest this world? You have to go through us first, and we humans are very hard to get through." The enemy ships intensified their attack, but the Eternal Vigil did not move. It stood its ground, protecting the people below. Its weapons continued firing, destroying enemy ships one by one. Its crew worked with desperate efficiency, saving every life they could reach. Finally, after 3 hours of constant combat, the Void Collective ships began to withdraw. They had taken too many losses. The harvest was no longer profitable. They turned and fled back into deep space. On the bridge, the crew was silent. The main screen showed the damaged city below. Large sections were gone, converted to nothing, but large sections remained. 4 million people had become 2 million. A terrible loss. But 2 million people lived because the Eternal Vigil had arrived in time. Park slumped in his chair. He looked exhausted beyond words. Damage report. Shields offline, Kim said quietly. Hull breaches on 14 decks. Weapons reduced to 30% capacity. We have 1,800,000 refugees on board. We are far over capacity. She paused. We saved them, Captain. We actually saved them. Vexathal walked slowly to Park's chair. The High Coordinator looked at the human captain with new eyes. You sacrificed your ship, your crew. You risked everything for people who are not even your own species. Park looked up at him. High Coordinator. When someone needs help, they are our species. That is what it means to be human. We stand between the darkness and those who cannot fight it themselves. Vexthal turned to look at the crowded cargo bays on a secondary screen. Humans and aliens sat together, sharing water and blankets. A human medic worked on an alien child while the child's mother held her hand. In that moment, Vexathal understood. He finally understood what humanity had been trying to tell them for 300 years. Commander Zixtar, Vexthal said formally, send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them the threat is real. Tell them the humans were right. And tell them we need to accept Captain Park's offer of alliance immediately. Zixtar nodded and moved to a communication station. He began composing the message that would change galactic history. Park watched the rescued people on his ship and allowed himself a small smile. They had been preparing for 300 years. The fight was just beginning. But now, finally, the galaxy was starting to understand. The Galactic Council chamber was very different from before. Every seat was filled. No one was laughing or dismissing concerns now. On the main screen, images from Althara Prime played in silent horror. The representatives had all seen the footage. They knew the threat was real. High Coordinator Vexthal stood at the center platform. His forearms were spread wide in the traditional gesture of formal declaration. The Council recognizes that humanity has been proven correct. The Void Collective is real and represents an existential threat to all organic life in the galaxy. I propose we accept Captain Park's offer of military alliance with immediate effect. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in Council history, every single representative agreed. Ambassador Choi watched from her seat and felt no satisfaction. Only sadness for the 300 years wasted. 300 years when they could have been preparing together. Captain Park appeared on the screen again. This time his uniform was clean and his face looked less tired. Behind him, the bridge of the Eternal Vigil showed repair crews working to fix the damage from the battle. Thank you, High Coordinator, Park said. With your permission, I will now share information that may surprise you. More surprises? Commander Zixtar asked. I am not certain my heart can handle more. Park almost smiled. I hope this surprise is a good one? He touched a control. The screen split to show a dozen new ships appearing. Each one was the same size and design as the Eternal Vigil. The Eternal Vigil is not alone. Humanity built 12 ships in total. They have all been on station in deep space for the past 3 centuries. They are now moving to defensive positions throughout Council space. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. 12 ships like the Vigil. 12 massive warships with technology far beyond what the Council possessed. The representatives did not know whether to feel relieved or frightened. A new figure appeared on the screen next to Park, an older human man with gray hair and a uniform that showed even more rank markings than Park's. His face was weathered, but his eyes were sharp and clear. I am Admiral Lee Sang-woo, the man said, Commander of the Human Defense Fleet. Captain Park commands the Eternal Vigil, but he is one of 12 captains under my authority. We are placing our entire fleet at the disposal of the Galactic Council for the duration of this crisis. Science Director Quinn Vera stood up. Admiral, forgive my directness, but how did humanity hide such a fleet? The resources needed, the construction, the maintenance for 300 years. It should have been impossible. Admiral Lee nodded slowly. It was nearly impossible, Director. Every human in our space contributed. We delayed colonization of new worlds so we could focus resources on the fleet. We lived with older technology because we needed advanced materials for the ships. Entire generations of humans were born, lived, and died, knowing their purpose was to prepare for a threat they might never see. He paused. But they did it anyway. Because that is what you do when you see danger coming. You prepare, even if no one believes you. Vexthal felt the weight of those words. He thought about his own people living comfortable lives for 3 centuries, while humans sacrificed everything to build these ships. Ships that would now protect everyone. "We need to integrate our forces," Commander Zixtar said. He had been working with human tactical officers since the battle at Althera Prime. "The Council fleet is large, but we lack the specialized weapons and defenses needed to fight the Void Collective effectively." "Agreed," Admiral Lee said. "We propose a joint command structure. Human ships will provide heavy combat capability and advanced weapons. Council ships will provide numbers and support. Together, we can create a defense that has a chance of success." Over the next week, the largest combined military operation in galactic history began. Human ships moved to key defensive positions. Council fleets gathered at assembly points, and officers from dozens of species worked together to create a unified battle strategy. It was not easy. Cultural differences created conflicts. Military doctrines clashed. Many alien officers struggled to understand human tactical thinking. Captain Park stood in a briefing room aboard the Eternal Vigil. Around him sat 20 fleet commanders from different species. On the screen was a simulation of a battle against Void Collective forces. "The simulation shows us losing," Commander Zixtar said, pointing at the display. "Even with the human ships, we do not have enough firepower to stop a full-scale Void Collective assault." "That is because you are thinking about this wrong," Park said. He changed the simulation. "The Void Collective is efficient, logical. They calculate risk versus reward for every action. If we make ourselves too costly to harvest, they will move to easier targets." "You mean retreat?" a Zenthari commander asked. "We abandon worlds to save the fleet?" "No," Park said firmly. "I mean, we make every battle so expensive for them that continuing the assault becomes illogical. We use tactics they cannot predict. We take risks that their calculations say we should not take. We make them uncertain." A Krellian officer shook her head. "That is insane. You cannot build a military strategy on unpredictability." Lieutenant Kim stepped forward. "That is exactly what humans do. We call it improvisation, adaptation, making it up as we go." She smiled slightly. "We are very good at it because we have to be. Humans are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest or the fastest. So we learn to be unpredictable, creative, illogical when logic says we should lose." She ran a new simulation. This time, human ships made seemingly reckless moves. They sacrificed position for unexpected angles of attack. They feinted retreats and then suddenly counterattacked. The result was chaos, but chaos that confused the Void Collective forces and created openings for Council ships to exploit. The alien commanders watched in silence. The simulation showed victory, but at high cost. Many ships were destroyed, including several human vessels. "You are willing to sacrifice your ships?" Zixtar asked quietly. "Your people?" "We are willing to do what is necessary," Park replied. "That is why we trained for 300 years. We accepted that this fight would be costly. We prepared our crews for sacrifice, not because we want to die, but because we know that sometimes the only way to save lives is to risk your own." Over the following days, the alien commanders began to understand human military philosophy. It was built on principles that seemed contradictory. Plan carefully, but be ready to abandon the plan. Fight intelligently, but never be afraid to take desperate chances. Value every life, but accept that some will be lost. Admiral Lee visited each fleet personally. He met with captains and crews, learning their capabilities and teaching them human tactics. He was patient, but firm. He explained that the coming battle would test everyone beyond their limits. In one meeting with Xanthari commanders, Lee was asked a difficult question. "Admiral, why do humans care so much? This is not your galaxy alone. Why sacrifice everything to protect species that doubted you?" Lee was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because that is what guardians do." A guardian does not protect only those who appreciate them. They protect everyone, even those who do not understand why protection is needed. Humans decided long ago that we would be guardians, not rulers, not conquerors, just people who stand watch so others can sleep safely. The Xanthari commander did not fully understand, but he respected the conviction in Lee's words. As the preparations continued, something unexpected happened. Alien crews began adopting human attitudes. They started taking calculated risks. They practiced improvisation drills. They learned to think creatively about problems instead of following rigid procedures. Commander Zixtar found himself working closely with Captain Park. They reviewed battle plans together, argued about tactics, and gradually became friends. One evening, Zixtar asked the question that had been bothering him. "Captain, are you afraid?" Park looked at him for a long moment. "Terrified," he admitted. "Every day. Fear is what kept humanity alert for 300 years. Fear is what made us prepare when everyone said we were paranoid. Fear is not weakness, Commander. Fear is information. It tells you what matters enough to protect." Zixtar considered this. In Krellian culture, admitting fear was shameful, but Park spoke of it like a tool, something useful rather than embarrassing. "How do you function if you are always afraid?" "We accept it," Park said simply. "We feel the fear and act anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear, Commander. Courage is being afraid and still standing your ground." The week ended with a completed defensive network. Human and council ships were positioned throughout the critical sectors. Communication protocols were established. Every crew member knew their role, and then the sensors detected it. A massive void collective fleet was approaching, far larger than anything they had seen before. The invasion force that would determine whether organic life in the galaxy survived or became raw material for machine expansion. Admiral Lee appeared on every ship's communication system. His face was calm, but his eyes showed the same tiredness that all human officers seemed to carry. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee. The enemy is 12 hours away. I will not pretend this will be easy. We will lose ships today. We will lose people we care about. But we will also prove that organic life does not surrender. We fight. We adapt. We survive. And when this battle is over, the Void Collective will learn that this galaxy is protected by all of us, together." On the bridge of the Eternal Vigil, Captain Park looked at his mixed crew, humans and aliens working side by side. "All stations ready?" "Yes, sir," came the chorus of replies in multiple languages. Park nodded. "Then we wait, and when they come, we show them what unity looks like." The fleet waited in silence. The 12 hours passed slowly, and when the Void Collective arrived, they found not a divided galaxy of separate species, but a unified force ready to fight for their shared survival. The edge of galactic space was cold and empty. No stars shone here, only the distant light from the galaxy behind them. It was the perfect place for a battle that would decide everything. Captain Minjun Park stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigil and watched the sensors. The Void Collective fleet appeared on the display like a spreading darkness. 200 ships, maybe more. The computers were still counting. "Final count is 247 hostile vessels," Lieutenant Kim reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped her console tightly. "They outnumber us 3-1. Around the Vigil, the combined fleet held formation. 12 human defense ships formed the center line. Council vessels spread out on the flanks, creating a wall of ships nearly 80 vessels strong. It looked impressive until you compared it to the approaching enemy force. On the secondary screen, Admiral Lee appeared. He was aboard his flagship, the Eternal Watch, positioned at the center of the human line. All ships, maintain formation. Wait for my command. High Coordinator Vexthal was on the bridge of the Council flagship Harmony of Spheres. He had insisted on joining the battle personally. Now, watching the enemy approach, he wondered if he would live to regret that decision. The Void Collective ships moved with terrible precision, spreading out to surround the defensive fleet. "They are trying to encircle us," Commander Zixtar said from his position on a Krellian warship. "If they succeed, they can attack from all sides." "Let them try," Admiral Lee replied calmly. "All human ships, activate Phase 1 defensive systems." The 12 human ships began to glow. Energy fields extended from their hulls, connecting ship to ship like a web of light. The fields created a barrier that the Council vessels could shelter behind. "What is that?" Quinvera asked from her science station on the Harmony of Spheres. "Linked shielding," came the reply from a human technical officer. "Each ship shares power with the others. As long as one ship has power, all 12 ships have shields. It is very difficult to break." The Void Collective fleet opened fire. Energy beams and plasma weapons filled the space between the fleets. The linked shields flared brilliant white as they absorbed the impacts. Behind the shields, Council ships returned fire. The battle had begun. For an hour, the two fleets hammered at each other. The Void Collective tried to break through the shield network. The combined fleet focused fire on enemy ships, destroying them one by one. Ships on both sides exploded into expanding clouds of debris, but the numbers were against them. For every Void Collective ship destroyed, 2 more pressed forward. The linked shields were holding, but the power drain was enormous. "Shield strength down to 40%, Kim reported. "We cannot maintain this much longer." Park watched the tactical display. The enemy was adapting, focusing fire on individual human ships to try to break the network. It was working. The Eternal Vigil shook as multiple enemy weapons targeted it specifically. "They have identified us as a command ship," Park said. "They are trying to take us out to break the formation." On his screen, Admiral Lee was having the same thought. The enemy was too smart, too adaptable. The defensive strategy was failing. They needed something else, something the Void Collective would not expect. Lee made a decision that he had hoped he would not have to make. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee. Prepare for final protocol." Park felt his heart sink. Final protocol. The last desperate option they had planned 300 years ago. The option that required the ultimate sacrifice. "All human ships will break formation," Lee continued. "We will perform a direct assault on the enemy command carrier. Our goal is to destroy their coordination network. Without it, the Void Collective fleet will lose cohesion." "Admiral!" Vexthal called out. "That is suicide. You will be surrounded and destroyed." "Yes," Lee agreed simply. "But we will take the command carrier with us, and that will give the rest of the fleet a chance to win." He paused. "This is why the Vigil was built, High Coordinator. This is why we trained for 300 years, not to live forever, but to sacrifice ourselves at the moment when it matters most." Park touched his communication system. "All crew, this is Captain Park. We are about to make a final assault run. Anyone who wishes to evacuate should head to the escape pods now. I will not order anyone to stay for this." On the screens throughout the ship, crew members looked at each other. Some were 3rd or 4th generation, born on the ship. Some had joined recently as part of crew rotations. All of them had trained their entire lives for this moment. Not a single person moved toward the escape pods. Lieutenant Kim stood at her station with tears in her eyes. "Captain, the crew reports all stations manned and ready. No one is leaving." Park felt pride surge through him. Very well. All hands, battle stations. We end this now. Then something unexpected happened. Commander Zixtar's voice came over the communication channel. Admiral Lee, the Krellian fleet requests permission to join your assault. Denied, Lee said firmly. This is a suicide mission, Commander. I know, Zixtar replied. That is why we want to join you. You humans have taught us many things this past week. One lesson is that some causes are worth dying for. Protecting innocent lives is one of those causes. More voices joined the channel. Zenthari commanders, Vexian captains, officers from a dozen species, all volunteering to join the assault, all accepting that they would probably not survive. Vexthal listened to his people volunteer for death and felt something break inside him. For 300 years, humans had prepared alone. They had sacrificed alone. They had stood watch while everyone else slept. And now, at the end, they were still willing to die alone to protect everyone else. No, Vexthal said quietly. Then louder, no. This time humanity does not stand alone. He turned to his ship's captain. The harmony of spheres will join the assault. High Coordinator, you cannot, the captain objected. You are the leader of the council. Which is exactly why I must, Vexthal replied. How can I ask others to risk everything if I will not do the same? Admiral Lee was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, and his voice carried emotion that had been hidden until now. All ships that wish to join the assault form up on the human vessels. Everyone else, prepare to exploit the opening we create. Make this sacrifice count. 37 ships broke formation. 12 human vessels and 25 council ships. They formed a wedge with the Eternal Vigil at the point. Ahead of them, the Void Collective Command Carrier loomed like a dark moon. All ships, maximum speed, Lee ordered. Target all weapons on the command carrier. We break through or we die trying. The assault force surged forward. Behind them, the remaining fleet intensified their fire to provide covering shots. The Void Collective recognized the threat and tried to block the assault. Enemy ships swarmed around the wedge, firing from all sides. Ships began to explode. A Zenthari cruiser took a direct hit and broke apart. 2 Krellian destroyers collided with enemy vessels in deliberate ramming attacks. The human ship Eternal Watch lost its shields and took heavy damage, but kept flying. The Eternal Vigil shook constantly from impacts. Hull breaches appeared on multiple decks. Fires broke out in engineering sections, but the ship pushed forward, its weapons never stopping. We are through their outer line, Kim shouted over the noise. The command carrier is 3,000 meters ahead. Park could see it on the main screen. The Void Collective Command ship was massive, covered in quantum communication arrays. Destroying it would not stop the fleet entirely, but it would disrupt their perfect coordination. It would create chaos, and in that chaos, the remaining Council fleet could turn the battle. All ships, concentrate fire on the command carrier's communication section, Admiral Lee ordered. His flagship was burning, but still fighting. Pour everything into that target. The assault force opened fire with everything they had left. Missiles, energy weapons, railguns, all focused on a single point. The command carrier's shields began to fail. Cracks appeared in its hull, but they were too few, too damaged. The Void Collective ships surrounded them, attacking from every angle. One by one, the assault ships began to die. The Eternal Watch exploded, taking Admiral Lee with it. 5 more ships were destroyed in the next minute. The harmony of spheres lost all power and began drifting, defenseless. On the Eternal Vigil, Park knew they had seconds left. Kim, transfer all remaining power to weapons, everything. Engines, shields, life support, everything. Sir, that will kill the ship, Kim said. The ship is already dead, Park replied. Let us make our death count. Power flowed from every system into the weapon arrays. The Vigil fired one final massive barrage, every weapon discharged at once. throwing so much energy at the command carrier that the Vigil itself went dark from the power drain. The weapons struck the command carrier's communications section. The damage that 37 ships had inflicted suddenly became critical. The section exploded, taking half the command ship with it. Throughout the Void Collective fleet, ships suddenly lost coordination. They stopped moving in perfect formation. They began making individual decisions instead of collective ones. Some ships continued attacking. Others tried to retreat. A few collided with each other. "It worked," Quinvera whispered from the drifting harmony of spheres. "By all the stars, it actually worked." The remaining Council fleet did not waste the opportunity. They surged forward, targeting the confused enemy ships. Without perfect coordination, the Void Collective's numerical advantage meant less. Individual ships could be isolated and destroyed. The battle continued for another 2 hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Void Collective fleet broke apart, retreating in disorganized groups. The combined fleet pursued, destroying every enemy ship they could catch. When it was over, the space was filled with debris from both sides. The Council fleet had lost 40 ships. Every single ship that had joined the final assault was either destroyed or disabled. But the Void Collective invasion force was broken. The survivors were fleeing. The galaxy was safe, at least for now. Rescue ships moved through the debris field, searching for survivors. They found the Eternal Vigil drifting without power. Its hull was broken in dozens of places. Its engines were dead. But life support had automatically reactivated on minimal power once the battle ended. Captain Park sat in his dark command chair and waited. Around him, his crew did the same. They had survived. Against all odds, they had survived. When rescue ships brought them back to the fleet, Park and his crew were greeted as heroes. But Park did not feel like a hero. He felt tired. So very tired. Vexthal found him in a medical bay, getting treatment for minor injuries. The High Coordinator had also survived, pulled from the harmony of spheres by rescue crews. "Captain Park," Vexthal said quietly, "I owe you an apology. 300 years of apologies, in fact." Park shook his head. "No apologies, High Coordinator. We did what we thought was right. We hoped that when the moment came, we would be proven right. And we hoped that others would stand with us when the proof arrived." "You were willing to sacrifice everything," Vexthal said. "Your ships, your people, your lives, for a galaxy that doubted you." "That is what it means to keep vigil," Park replied. "A guardian does not guard only those who believe in them. They guard everyone, because everyone deserves to be safe." In the days after the battle, the galaxy began to rebuild. The Eternal Vigil and the other damaged human ships were towed to repair facilities. The Galactic Council offered humanity a position of leadership, a place of honor for saving everyone. Humanity declined. "We do not want to lead," Admiral Lee's replacement said. "We want to continue our purpose. We will keep watching the deep, dark places. We will stand guard so others can live without fear. That is enough for us." The Council accepted this, though they did not fully understand. They created new treaties, new alliances. They began building their own defensive networks, learning from human experience. 6 months later, the Eternal Vigil was repaired and ready to return to service. Captain Park stood on the bridge looking at the familiar controls and screens. His crew was around him, ready to resume their mission. "Where to, Captain?" Lieutenant Kim asked. Park looked at the star map, at the vast darkness between galaxies. "Back to our vigil. Back to the watch. There are other threats out there, other enemies that we need to understand and prepare for." "And if the Council does not believe us again?" Kim asked. Park smiled slightly. "Then we prepare anyway, because that is what humans do. We see the danger. We prepare for it, and when the moment comes, we stand between the darkness and those who need protection." The Eternal Vigil turned toward the edge of space and accelerated away. Behind it, The galaxy continued living, working, dreaming. Most would forget about the ship that had saved them. That was acceptable. The vigil was not kept for glory or recognition. It was kept because someone needed to keep it. And humanity had decided long ago that they would be those someones. In the dark between stars, the 12 human ships took up their positions once more. Watching, waiting, ready. The vigil continued.